I'm your host, Brother Jeremiah. Today, we'll be talking to Scott Risma from Built to Truth Ministries about hot current events. Scott is a Bible prophecy teacher who also pursued a master's in national security studies. Thank you, Scott, for joining us today.
Jeremy, thanks for having me. And last time I was with you, we were talking about, it seems like just yesterday, we were talking about the moves toward Sunday legislation at the state and local level, as called forth by the Heritage Foundation in their 2026 document. We proverbially called it Project 2026. We're looking at the 250th anniversary of the founding of America. So much going on, and in Bible prophetic context, where you have moves toward that Revelation 13 scenario, we're also seeing wars and rumors of war. I mean, we all just woke up in a different world, didn't we? And so, yeah, when I was talking to you Friday, we were like, hey, this is looking like it's going to be moving pretty quickly. So can I share something with you? In my devotions this morning, I'm going through the Bible chronologically. And do you remember the seminar, I Will Not Be Moved, where we talked about the coming crisis 2025 to 2030? The key text for that seminar was Psalm 46, where it's talking about God's people, she shall not be moved. In the midst of all the craziness that's going on, it says, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, and so on. So we kind of grabbed the first 6 verses of that. It just so happened to be where I was in my journey through the chronological study of the Bible. Today, when we're waking up in this different world at war with Iran, and we've got this podcast scheduled, and I was like, Lord, what are the chances of that? And it says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. So it doesn't matter what comes our way, friends, be still and know that he is God. Do you know what verse comes right before that? He maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth. He rebuketh the bow and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariot in fire. This will all cease. God's going to see to it that wars cease, destruction, death, sorrow, sin, temptation, discouragement, anything that you're going through. So I want us to, when we're doing Bible prophecy and looking at signs of the times, some people have fear, but the Bible says perfect love drives out all fear. And though men's hearts fail them for fear when they see these signs coming upon the earth, lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. This means that Jesus is coming again soon. Well, we already knew he's coming, but this is just showing how close we are. You mentioned the national security studies thing, by the way. Can I share a quick story on that?
Oh, yeah, I'm very curious about that.
Okay. So you might know my master's is actually in history and political science. And we had talked before, and like the background was national security studies. And people wondered, well, why didn't you complete the master's in NSS? Well, this was post 9/11, okay? And I was interested in the global events that were happening, not as much from a prophetic standpoint at that stage and age of my life, but I was interested in it just as a history guy. So I was like, maybe I'll do national security studies. Entry-level course. Do you know what the key text is that they have us study?
Oh, what's that?
It's Machiavelli, the Prince. Now, listeners who don't know the history of philosophy, let me clue you into the significance of that. Have you ever heard people say, boy, that's kind of a Machiavellian calculation? Or that's really a Machiavellian type of motive? What they're referring to is the philosophy that the ends justify the means, and that, as one later neoconservative philosopher wrote, we must at times enter into evil, or as a vice president of the United States said, work the dark side. And I thought, I'm a Christian. Is this a program I want to be a part of? Because I figured we're going to read Machiavelli and pick it apart, deconstruct it, say, hey, we have a higher moral standard and we believe in principles as a constitutional republic, not an empire. And we're like actually imbibing in Machiavellian philosophy. I kind of got the feeling that it was meant to weed out those who have moral compunctions. And so I did quickly move out from that program where they were teaching about, this is 2007. They're like, we want to advocate for the weaponization of space. Okay, you now know about Space Force, and you now have a Department of War, not Department of Defense. So these things were in motion post 9/11, really pedal to the metal because of what had happened on 9/11. And you had this big national security apparatus being formed. I was almost a part of that. I was almost being brought into it. This is the program, the master's program, that those would graduate from and go get jobs in the national security state, in the intelligence apparatus, in Department of Defense, you name it. So anyway, I'm just glad that God pulled me out of that and that I had at least that amount of light, even though I wasn't fully in the present truth at the time. But, you know, that was the neocon agenda at the time. It's like they've wanted this war with Iran for a long time. I remember after 9/11, before I kind of woke up to, you know, how much we're being lied to by the mainstream media, for a couple of months after 9/11, I was actually spouting that neocon line where it's like, there are 7 Middle Eastern countries that we need to be overthrown. We need to take them out one by one. They've got these terrible regimes. And I was 21 years old. I regret that. But, you know, they had the list: Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Egypt. And on that list was Iran. So here we are. It's kind of like I'm pinching myself. We're 25 years later in 2026 here. And it's like we're living in Dick Cheney and John McCain's world, that so much of my life as an adult and being involved in history and political science and being a teacher in these fields has kind of been moving towards. So this is prophetic, I think, is the main direction we want to go. But yeah, anyway, I thought you'd appreciate that story because I never told you that.
Well, it's definitely. Oh, I was just curious about something. So you mentioned it was a vice president that mentioned about the dark side. Which vice president was that?
That was Dick Cheney.
Oh, it was. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. So, all right. Well, anyways, I'm going to start queuing up our first question here. So conflicts happen from time to time. Is this just another minor skirmish, or is this something different that's going on with this Iran thing?
Definitely not a minor skirmish. This is different. It's different in several ways. First and foremost, I actually agree with something I read in mainstream media reporting, that the Iranian retaliatory strikes that have occurred, and this is being recorded Sunday, March 1. So some of this is going to be evergreen. Some of this will be just current events. But those retaliatory strikes are like nothing we've ever seen before. By that phrase, when the mainstream media says Iran's retaliation is like nothing we've ever seen before, what they mean is not necessarily quantifying the number of projectiles, missiles and drones, because that's even TBD right now. There's a lot of fog of war and noise, so we don't necessarily know the scope in quantity, but we know the breadth of it. Kuwait, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Iraq, Jordan, of course, Israel. I mean, they're hitting and striking U.S. and Israeli assets all over the place, and that's never happened before. We'll talk about some things that have happened before later on, I think. But the second reason this is different is the stated objective of the Trump administration is regime change. This is a regime change war. There is more U.S. presence in the Middle East right now than at any time since the start of the last regime change war in 2003, the invasion of Iraq. So, Trump very openly said, this is your chance. Iranian people will see what you do with it. And, they're going to take down and overthrow the Iranian regime. The supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah Khamenei, has been killed, as I'm sure everybody knows at this point. That's another reason this is not just a minor skirmish. This isn't just the killing of a terrorist or a major cleric. I mean, this is the top guy. In the minds of the Shia Muslims in Iran and around the world, he's the supreme God-appointed protector of Islam. So that makes this a religious war. This could domino into sleeper cells of Hezbollah, which is tied to Iran, engaging in terrorist attacks in the West. And this is not just going to go away in 48 hours kind of thing. There's even today, it's continuing.
Okay. All right. So my next question is, since this is a war to defeat Israel's enemies, is this prophetic in any way?
That's a really good question. Everybody's talking about this as if the Israel part of it is prophetic. What I teach in my Bible prophecy seminars is wars and rumors of war in general are prophetic. So that's all we need to know this is a sign of the times. In Matthew 24, Jesus said, you will see these things taking place like birth pangs. And have you noticed they're becoming more frequent and more intense, just like birth pangs are? Lift up your heads, friends. Your redemption is drawing nigh. Prepare your heart. Prepare to see thy God, to meet thy God. Do you have Deuteronomy 30, Jeremy? Do you remember I told you about Deuteronomy 30, verses 1 through 3? And if you can pull that up, I reject Christian Zionism simply because the Bible does not support it. If you could blow that up for me so I can read it.
Or I can read it as well here.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right. So Deuteronomy 30. So when all of these blessings and curses I have set before you come on you, and take them to heart wherever the Lord your God disperses you among the nations. Second verse. And when you and your children return to the Lord your God and obey him with all your heart, with all your soul, according to everything I have commanded you today. And third verse, then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes and have compassion on you and gather you again from all nations where he scattered you.
Okay, so that last part, God's going to gather his people. He's speaking to Israel. He's going to gather his people back to their land from the nations where he has scattered them. Did everybody hear that part? This is the foundational prophetic text about the resettlement of God's Israelite people into the land of promise. Because you're going to rebel, you're going to be scattered. Here's the key. In this foundational prophetic text about the biblical, God-ordained regathering of the people to the land, there is a condition. It says, and you shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice, according to all that I command thee this day. Then I'm going to gather thee from all nations whither the Lord thy God has scattered thee. Did you hear the condition? They're to repent and obey as a precondition for returning to the land. So the whole movement of Christian Zionism was to give the Jewish people a homeland according to God's geographical map of the nation of Israel in the Old Testament. And this has recently become a big controversy with a conversation with Mike Huckabee saying, yeah, they can go ahead and I don't mind if they take all of that land, which would include large chunks of neighboring countries. This idea of Christian Zionism would be, our Bible says that land belongs to the Jews, so we say that that is something that we want to be blessed by supporting and defending. And so our national and prosperity, our church prosperity, even our individual souls are dependent upon us blessing and supporting this nation state that was founded in 1948. Now, I don't have any reason to condemn or promote any nation state. Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. But biblically, I have to point out the prophecy was not fulfilled in 1948. The founding of the state of Israel was geopolitical machinations, post-Holocaust, just the movements of political powers upon the earth and populations. How do I know that that did not fulfill prophecy? Because the prophecy was conditional upon obedience and repentance. Was there a mass coming to Jesus and recognizing Jesus as the Messiah and Savior amongst the Jewish people prior to that return to the land in 1948? No. I mean, there are many friends of mine are Jews and are Christians and believe in Jesus, but not as a nation. There wasn't a repenting happening. So it was a human, man-made event, movement. It was not prophetically fulfilling anything. That prophecy actually in Deuteronomy 30, verses 1 through 3, was fulfilled when the Jews came back from Babylon, because there they were returning to the Lord under Nehemiah, under Ezra. So that was fulfilled. What we're seeing right now is a fulfillment of Bible prophecy in the fact that it's wars and rumors of war. to be sure. So we don't want to diminish the prophetic implications of what's happening in Iran right now, but the Israel part of it gets overblown, and actually Antichrist doesn't arise in Israel. Um, that's a whole other conversation about who is Antichrist in the beast power and who is Israel in the new covenant. And we probably don't have a whole lot of time for that whole theological teaching. Send me an email, folks, scottritzma@gmail.com. I'll send you some links on the Bible teachings on that.
All right. Well, thank you, Scott. So my next question is that you recently put out a short saying that this attack on Iran has religious liberty implications because it's setting aside the Constitution. Can you expand more on that?
Yeah, the Constitution is clear that it is Congress that has the power to authorize the initiation of war, not the president. The Constitution says Congress declares war. The president is the commander-in-chief of the war. So who initiates it? It's Congress. That's very clear in the Constitution. Now, this is not partisan political commentary going after Trump. He's not the first one. All the presidents since Vietnam have basically ignored that constitutional provision under the guise of, well, it's not a war. Congress has the authority to declare war. So we haven't declared war since 1941 because presidents just start initiating conflicts, minor self-defense conflicts on their own. I'm the commander-in-chief, so I have the power to do a limited military action to defend our military assets around the globe. So prophetically, two things. One, yeah, we're an empire. That's what empires do. Trump is just taking this to the next level. Sustained attacks to overthrow the Iranian regime. And the constitutional argument here would be that that's not a war. It's carried out by the Department of War that the Trump administration renamed, but it's not a war. That's where we're at in terms of the respect for the Constitution, and the religious liberty implications of that are, if war powers clause in the Constitution has no meaning, then why does the First Amendment, which says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, that's meaningless too then. If if certain portions of the Constitution are ignored, then all of it can be.
Okay. Oh, thanks. All right. My next question is, does this action that the United States took to defeat Iran show that the second beast is gaining more power?
Yeah. The second beast of Revelation 13, the United States. Again, that's the first time you've heard that. Send me an email, scottritzma@gmail.com. I'll send you a link explaining that Bible prophecy. It has him coming up out of the earth, rising. And some of the other beasts or kingdoms, nations of Bible prophecy, Daniel 7 says a beast is a kingdom. Many of them were arise, devour much flesh, like bam, they're on the scene. Imperial conquest, instantly trampling everything with its feet. But this one is rising up out of the earth. That's why we called our series years ago, Second Beast Rising. And that's how you just asked it. Is it gaining more power? Yeah, and it's been a 250-year process. And I love America's founding. I love the Constitution. I love how God ordained a land of liberty. Oh, man, one of my favorite chapters in the whole book, The Great Controversy, is chapter 16. And as a part of that rise, there was a rise in liberty being extended to more classes of society. But also as a part of that rise, there was a greater federal power and eventually international power acquired. And you can actually break down the history of the United States into three republics, three phases. You had the Federation of States from the founding to 1861 or 1865, Civil War. And the United States was referred to in the plural form of the noun. The United States are going to war with Britain in 1812. The United States are establishing a railroad network across the land. From 1865 and on, it was a nation. So we went from federation to nation. And this was also happening in Europe at the time with nationalism, with the unification of German states and the consolidation into the nation state phase. 1865, end of the Civil War, taking you to the end of World War II. We come out of World War II as one of the two sole superpowers in the world, at which time you have imperial responsibilities now to defend all of the free world. and that national security state grows up and becomes more powerful with the intelligence apparatus and bases all over the world and stuff. After 9/11, it just took it to the next level. And literally right now, this week, we're seeing another rung of that ladder of imperial climb occur. And so, you could say it's a relatively benevolent empire. Some people think when I talk empire, that's like I hate America and some sort of communist or something. No, I'm observing history as objectively as I can. I realize it'll step on some people's toes, but it's an empire. And leave it up to the historians or God in the millennium to assess how benevolent and where were the crimes. And we're looking at Epstein documents and things like that. Like, oh, maybe things weren't as squeaky clean and sanitized as we thought.
Okay. All right. So will this be like Iraq with a full-scale U.S. invasion of troops?
That's not 100%. That's not as likely. Their intention, I think, right now is to not have a full-scale invasion, U.S. occupation of Iran like it was with Iraq. There's a close Trump ally, Raheem Kassam. He kind of leaked, probably with permission, that they're intending for committing to like a 30-day campaign of bombings and missiles. This is a massive war, but it'll be different, I think, than Iraq, unless things go off the rails and then you feel a responsibility to come in and establish order, and whether that's intentional or not. But, Trump just said, well, maybe we'll stop in 2 or 3 days. But he said, stay in your homes. Bombs will be falling all around. I mean, our hearts go out to people who are in the Middle East right now, people who are caught up in this. And, some people are evil and are involved with fighting. And then there's just a whole bunch of innocent bystanders. And this is, there's death, a lot of death happening. So we need to be praying for peace and praying for people to know Jesus before their probation closes and they breathe their last.
All right. So what do you think? Do you think this is something that's going to blow over in the next few days, or is this going to go on for months, or how long do you think this will last for?
Well, previous CIA assessments, you have a Charlie Kirk clip, don't you? I want to air a Charlie Kirk. Do you have that?
Yep.
And then I'll comment. Just play it.
Next. What comes after regime change? Might be, we need a small number of U.S. troops to support the new regime. We have seen this play before. Regime change, you have no idea how this is going to work out. You have no idea. We are just...
So at the beginning of the clip, he said something like, so you take out the Ayatollah, what comes next? And I think the question marks that surround that need to be respected and valued, because this is a lot more complex than simple geopolitical theory might be able to posit. So to answer the question, I don't know. Nobody knows other than God. But I'll just give you some of the nuts and bolts of, what previous CIA assessments have said. They've said, if you take out the Ayatollah, then what happens is hardliners from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps would be the ones that would take power. So, of course, the effort is to take all of them out. Reports are that like 7, or other reports like 40, depending on what you read, have been killed of these Revolutionary Guard Corps leaders. So it's chaos right now. Who knows? But as long as the Revolutionary Guards hold power, then it continues. They continue to hold off the potential uprisings, and they continue to, as long as they have the capability, retaliate. I think regime decapitation is not as simple as people think. Like, they saw Venezuela and they're like, wow, this is easy, Well, that was just one person. I mean, they left the successor in power and arrested Maduro and his wife. Iran has layers of power and succession. And what the Trump admin is going for, Trump personally called on the people to take power. He's like, let's see what you do with this, If the Revolutionary Guards fall, maybe you have warring factions seeking to take power. And that's got civil war written all over it. So no matter what permutation of this is not over in a couple of days. And plus, if you got 30, that they just had 30,000 of their citizens in Iran killed in brutal crackdowns by their government. Bombs are falling all over the place. They're being told, stay in your house. They might not be in the mood for an uprising to overthrow the Iranian National Guard Corps at the time that it's at its weakest and most vulnerable. They're the ones that control the military. They control the security infrastructure. So as long as they stand, this continues. And I don't know. It's not looking like this is going to be quick and simple and tidy.
Okay. All right. So you've taught in your I Will Not Be Moved seminar about historical cycles and the fourth turning. Is this war in Iran a part of that?
Yeah, Jeremy, you know a lot about the fourth turning.
Oh, yeah.
Man, we were talking about this, 2 years ago in 2024 when I was preparing I Will Not Be Moved. You and I were talking fourth turning. We're like, yeah, the historical cycles are lining up for the latter half of this decade. That's why we called our seminar The Coming Crisis 2025 to 2030. Those aren't prophetic dates, to be crystal clear. The last prophetic date was fulfilled in 1844. But just with social science lenses on, we're able to use the tools of historical analysis, which, by the way, you don't learn in the mainstream history profession. They completely set aside the cyclical view of history. I get into all of that in the seminar. I won't repeat it all here. Folks can watch it, by the way, at beltoftruth.tv. I don't know, Jeremy, if you have a way to show that, but beltoftruth.tv, by the way, is free access to our whole library of seminars and courses. Just request a free login. For those who believe in what we're doing, you want to chip in $7. That's awesome. For those who can't, just request a free login, please. Watch that seminar. I will not be moved. So yeah, we were looking at several cyclical indicators, all pointing to this time window for an increase, especially in global war. And so that's why we were like, yeah, watch 2025, 2026, 2027, especially. And then rotation out of the fourth turning, if time should last, 2030 to 2034. But the latter half of a crisis season, according to the four turnings, you got spring, summer, fall, and winter. The crisis season is the winter season. Get educated about that. It's a pretty interesting view of history. It helps put some of the prophetic events that we know are to take place at the end in a little bit of a historical perspective. But, we've been seeing it line up, haven't we? And so, like, is this war in Iran part of that? Yeah, 100%. Because we're in the winter season when war increases. Russia invades Ukraine. Israel and the U.S. destroy the nuclear sites of Iran. U.S. attacks Venezuela. These things are happening with increased frequency, increased intensity. It's like birth pangs, like Jesus said. So a sure word of prophecy is in there, though it doesn't give dates. We just look at history and look at current events and have some interesting conversations about the times in which we live now. But what we know from Bible prophecy is where this is going. This is going to forced worship. It's going to the persecution of God's people. So we need to be ready. We need to be reaching souls with the gospel while we have time, because events are ominous.
Yep. And then also in the fourth turning is here. The book also mentions that there's also going to be a lot of civil action that's happening as well. And we're starting to see, especially this year as well, happening.
Yeah. That's been happening even in the U.S. You're seeing when we talk about World War III, because we were talking, is this the beginning of World War III?
Yes, that's my next question.
It's World War III is kind of different than World War I and World War II, where there was two clear sets of alliances, and you had the Axis powers and the Allied powers, and it was just like they face off against each other in different theaters. This world today is more complex than that. It's not two simple sides with alliances. You can kind of boil it down to the US, Russia, and China. But there's more to it than that. Like, how much are Russia and China going to get involved in the Middle East? Everybody's interested in their own theater. We kind of have a tripolar world forming right now. The U.S. sphere, the Russian sphere. Sorry, Western Europe is really on the decline, and I don't see this going well if an agreement isn't made in Ukraine. And the Chinese sphere in East Asia. So is this the beginning of World War III in Iran? Well, maybe World War III started in 2020 with the bioweapon out of China. Maybe 2020, COVID. Maybe World War III started in 2021 with an injectable. Maybe it started in 2022 with Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Maybe it started in 2023 on October 7 with the Hamas attack on Israel. Maybe it started in 2024 with the Iranian attack on Israel with the drones. Maybe it started in 2025 with the U.S. attack and Israeli attack on Iran with their nuclear sites. Or maybe this is the beginning. I mean, we're kind of walking into it. And oftentimes we don't have a definite pinpointed date of the beginning of an epoch, a great war. With retrospect and hindsight, you can look back and, okay, that's when it started. We're in the fog of war now. When did World War II start, by the way? If you ask in the East Asian sphere, it started earlier with the invasion of Manchuria than it started with Hitler's invasion of Poland and annexation of Czechoslovakia. Or the U.S., 1941, Pearl Harbor. So 37, 39, 41. We're in the last days is the sure word of prophecy that we have got to really heed, friends, because time is shorter than we think. So yeah, China is involved, and Russia. Russia's been a long-time ally of Iran, but China has even supplied Iran with weaponry and technology. China would probably love to see kind of a proxy war between Iran and the United States, keeping that regime afloat and allowing the United States to be weakened and pulling our military assets into the Middle East instead of being available for other spheres. So this may be a time China moves on Taiwan in the next year or two, depending on how long this go on, a month or two, who knows? But anyway, a lot of theaters of different things exploding simultaneously. We've had Cambodia and Thailand blow up, India and Pakistan, Russia, Middle East, even as you mentioned, civil wars, civil conflict internally in nations.
Okay, just a lot of things going on. It seems like it's not
Yeah.
as clear cut as it was in the past. That's for sure. Yep, and plus, yeah, everything that's going on civil is here as well. All right, so how about the Iranians in America? How do they feel about the U.S. military action against Iran?
There are a lot of Persians that really, really don't like the regime that has ruled with an iron Islamic regressive grip for so many decades, and for good reason. Do you have a graphic? I actually have a survey on this. I was curious about what Americans were who are of Iranian. Yeah, there it is. The blue are those who disagree with. This was taken before the current war began, but the blue are those who oppose, and the red ones are those who would favor it. And so, if you add the blue ones together, what do you get? 53. And if you add the red ones together, is it 39? I'm having a hard time reading those, but basically, it's skewed on the side of Americans of Iranian descent, a lot of whom are, patriotic. They're Americans. They're not living under that regime. They're split, but it skews on the side of opposing military action. That's something that should be considered, I think, as you think about the implications for just human beings and a culture of people with a long history. People who love history hate seeing destruction. It's like, this is just tragic no matter how you slice it. And a brutal regime, diabolical, demonic, religious, pagan king has fallen. I just leave it all to God to assess, and will hold my peace beyond that and let my words be few. There's a millennium where we'll learn about everything that went on this side of heaven with all the death and destruction and the responsibility of who bears what. God will judge that accurately.
Okay. All right. So what will happen to Iran with this power vacuum? Will it become a puppet government to the U.S., for example?
That's the hope of the neocons, is that all the Persians greet us with a, parade of welcome, and, a democracy-friendly government takes hold and cooperates closely with the United States. And we've heard that story before. So I'm skeptical that would happen so easily. But prophetically, we know that there is a way that the second beast can enforce the mark globally. Kind of like how during COVID, we saw like global lockdowns, global vaccine mandates. It was pretty uniform. So I think you got to put Revelation 13 in the context of a global crisis bigger than what we're seeing this week. This is going to look tiny in comparison to what is coming in the near future. So it's a lot messier than what the simple neoconservative geopolitical theory would suggest. So I guess I can just say I don't know. Probably not. Simply gonna turn over into democracy next week.
Okay. All right. A little bit more complex than that.
Yeah.
All right. So do you think that the Middle East will now be safe and be at peace? And then for people that are traveling there, is it going to be safe to travel to the Middle East because of this?
I would not. I won't tell people what to do or what, if God's calling people to be missionaries, put their lives on the line. But I just mean in terms of leisure travel, and is this a peaceful and safe place? This is birth pangs. This is not, peace is not coming to the Middle East or anywhere globally during this time of a cycle in history and this time of a prophetic window at the end of time. I pray for that. I hope for that. But yeah, be careful.
All right. So this year, 2026, we had Venezuela, then we have Iran. So there must be something else on the USA checklist. What's next?
The USA check. This feels like post 9/11. Like we got a checklist. Oh, brother. You remember when we were talking after Venezuela got hit, and I'm like, you said what's next, and I'm like, Mexico. You're like, really? I said, yeah, the cartels. And then what happened? What was it, just last week or 2 weeks ago? We were like, oh, we better do a live stream because the civil unrest is happening. And we better talk about prophecy, help people focus on Jesus, get ready for his return, do the gospel work. Yeah. But we didn't get around to it. And then immediately that's like old news. And we're in the middle of this craziness. So the blow up in Puerto Vallarta happened. Venezuela, there is a focus on Latin America. The Monroe Doctrine, the Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, saying we can intervene in Latin America at our pleasure. That's back in play. Cuba is probably even on the chopping block, believe it or not. It's empire time. The second beast is rising. Who knows what's next? This is like neocon revenge. It's return, or the empire strikes back, to use a phrase from the culture. But it's real. It's the history we're living right now. Prophetically, the second beast was to rise, and I don't know. I can't say exactly what's next on the list. There's probably a lot of work to be done by these guys in Iran. I don't think this is going to be 2 or 3 days.
All right. Spiritually, where do we go from here?
Oh, I love that question, Jeremy. Thank you for that. Academically, you can get bogged down in the minutia and even the big picture of history, just the secular lenses through which many look at these things. We put our prophetic lenses on, and then even more importantly, upon whom do we look through the biblical lenses? Is it just the events? No. The events are just there to awaken and remind and give us indicators of where we stand in the timeline of history and Bible prophecy, so that, you use the word spiritually. Where do we go from here? Spiritually. You know what? I sent you a clip. I can't say it any better right now than I did in that one. Do you have any other questions, or do you want to just roll that clip and call it done here?
Yeah. So let's conclude here, and then we'll play the clip here. So thank you, Scott, for your insights on the current events that are going on. A lot of current events going on, that's for sure. Especially in the past couple of days, we didn't even, when we were preparing for this, we didn't expect any of this. The Iran and things like that. So that was something major.
You know what though? I didn't say this to you, but when we were talking on Friday, there were 2 messages going out that insiders had leaked that something's going to happen this weekend. One of them said this weekend, like within 48 hours. And then another one said soldiers are being sent. Now that one, I'm like, but they're saying no boots on the ground. So I don't know. But he said, soldiers are being sent. That's all I can say. That was Martin Armstrong. So these kind of things sometimes do leak out, and you kind of know what to expect, or some of that is just propaganda also. But yeah, stay tuned to Belt of Truth. We will keep you guys posted. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we're also, by the way, in addition to the clip you're going to play, Jeremy, read The Great Controversy. That's like, where do we go from here spiritually? We focus on Jesus, deepen our trust relationship with him, do outreach, seek and save that which was lost, as it's going to say in the clip there too. Receive the seal of God, pray for the latter rain, stand in the righteousness of Christ. And as a part of that, read the book, The Great Controversy. And if you're listening to this and you don't have a copy, just email us and we mail you a free copy if you're in the U.S. We get you a copy another way if you're out. ScottRitzema@gmail.com. Request a free book, The Great Controversy. It gives you the history of the Christian church and prophecy of what's to come. And right now we are working on the video book of The Great Controversy. And I am loving this book. I get to read chapters in a beautiful nature setting. You know what? The lighting and the umbrella and the camera and the mic, that stuff like stresses me out to the max because I'm super non-techie and I just want to focus on the reading. But I'm doing all this, and by God's grace, we're getting this book recorded in video form, not an audio book, but a video book, because the majority of people will never read a book. And a very small slice, maybe if we read it to them with the words on the screen, with the speaker reading, with the expression and enthusiasm, looking at the listener, like, you know, in grade school, the teacher reading to you. But it's complex reading, so it's for those that have the comprehension level. So there's a slice of the pie who would not pick up a book and read it, but who maybe will listen to me read it to them. That's who we're trying to reach. Those thousands of people right there. And keep on handing out the physical books. Get them in every home. I love what people like Streams of Light are doing. That's awesome. I'm a part of it, actually. We go in public and hand out Great Controversy books. Yeah, stay tuned with our ministry, because I want, when that book comes out, I want you guys to share the links and spread that far and wide. And we're still raising funds to be able to boost those videos and produce those videos. So if you want to be a part of that, go to beltoftruthministries.org. The Great Controversy video book project. I can't wait to release that later this year. We're about a quarter of the way done with the recordings. So now you can play your clip, Jeremy. Sorry. Thanks for that.
Right. Yeah, no problem. And then I also have the QR code. So for the free book giveaway. So just please click on that as well.
Thank you.
All right. And then, so thanks to our producer, Christian Digital Network. From likes to lives change, please scan the QR code as well to subscribe to CDN as well. All right. So so thank you, Scott, once again, and we're going to go ahead and conclude with a clip.
Angels are now restraining the winds of strife until, here's the key, until the world shall be warned of its coming doom. That's what we're doing here. Judgments are about to fall upon the earth. Get ready, get ready, get ready. A storm is gathering, ready to burst upon the earth, and when God shall bid his angels loose the winds, there shall be such a scene of strife as no pen can picture. A moment of respite has been graciously given us of God. Every power lent us of heaven is to be used in, underscore this, pause it here, think about this, doing the work assigned us by the Lord for those who are perishing in ignorance. What do we do with the brief windows of time that we have? These short moments, this peace and safety that will not last. We had better be about the work of God for perishing souls. Revelation 7 says, "And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree." Why is God holding back the crisis? We're in the second half of the crisis season. Does anybody else feel like since COVID went Omicron in 2022 and it was less severe and that a lot of people started to pull back on mandates and lockdowns, we've had several years now of quite a bit of peace and safety and normalcy in the second half of a crisis season. We're on borrowed time. The angels are holding those winds. Why? We read one answer already, so that we can do the work, finish the work, reach the perishing souls. And then here's the rest. This is for you. He cried with a loud voice to the four angels, to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea nor the trees, till we have, what does it say? Sealed the servants of God in their foreheads. What is the seal of God? This is my favorite quote about the seal of God. The people of God are sealed in their foreheads. It is not any seal or mark that can be seen, but what is the seal? It is this: a settling into the truth, both intellectually and spiritually, so that they cannot be moved. She shall not be moved. I will not be moved. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, there is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. The heathen raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, the earth melted. Today, stand secure in his armor, with his righteousness, in his grace. Your title to heaven, your fitness for heaven are both found in Christ alone. Be so settled into the truth as it is in Jesus, both intellectually and spiritually, that you cannot be moved, and you shall